Man, it's foggy out here in the 60-yard backyard. That's like werewolf level fog, right? Look out for the werewolves. Eesh. So I posted this on the YouTube channel there. It just popped up on my YouTube app and it said, hey, we've got some really good video ideas for you. AI has determined what your 4 best video topics are. And then I posted them and I said, hey, you friends of Bunjie, what do you want to hear? Or do you want to see one of these topics? And people said basically all of them are good topics. So I'm going to do something on these 4 topics. Today's topic was deer season 2025, my Ravin R29X plan. Ooh, right? The R29X plan. A meticulous plan is unveiled for the upcoming 2025 deer season centered around the Ravin R29X. Ooh. The strategic decisions and preparations involved are explored, offering blah, 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 blah. How does AI know that I'm going to hunt with that crossbow? I don't even know that I'm going to hunt with this crossbow. One of the reasons I really like this crossbow is because it's small, it's compact, it's narrow, it's short. It has all the features that I liked about the SWAT X1, that I love about the SWAT X1. But the difference is this one is faster, right? It's like almost 100 feet per second faster, really, when you do the real numbers. It's probably 60, 75 feet per second faster at least. It also is decockable, and that's really nice. Okay, I really do like the crank system. I actually enjoy cranking it more than I do shooting it. Right, a lot of energy in that crossbow, way more than what I am used to. You know, I grew up as a crossbow hunter, so to speak, for 16 years now, shooting that crossbow, the OB, and then moving on to SWATs and Scorpids and that sort of thing. Those smoother shooting crossbows. This crossbow, not a smooth shooter, okay? I'm always learning when it comes to crossbows, and I think that's an important thing I think you should always be learning too, right? Hopefully Death by Bunjie helps you a little bit when it comes to learning more about crossbows and crossbow hunting. It's really the ideas that we talk about here. I am a range-finding scope guy. I still think that that is perfection. It is crossbow hunting perfection when you get an exact dot that's going to show you exactly where that arrow is going to go. You can't beat that. However, setting up that scope on a crossbow like this is a little bit difficult. The reason is it takes a dozen or more shots to properly set up a Burris Oracle X. This crossbow is not the kind of crossbow you want to shoot a dozen or more times, right? It's not a sit around the backyard and shoot it for fun kind of crossbow, at least not for me, not compared to the other crossbows in my crossbow hunting history. One of the things that I liked about this crossbow that really brought me around to liking this crossbow this year is the Hawk Zoom FFP scope. I really like that scope. There's a link in the description. You can check that out. But it's one of those things, and it's also, there's a write-up on the Death by Bunjie gear page. It really is a kind of a game changer for me when it comes to this crossbow in particular, because it's set up so easy. In 3 shots, I was hitting a bullseye. And it holds its accuracy. It maintains its accuracy so well, which it should, right? Any scope should do that. But I sat here yesterday trying out the new Bulldog 450 XL target, and this thing hit bullseyes, right? It was perfect. Dead on at 20 yards. And once it's dead on at 20 yards, basically you are okay at 30 and all the other yardages. It doesn't have a speed ring, but it does have very, very good glass, very good optics. It's good in low light, at least. I haven't hunted with it, obviously, but I've been out in dusk with it, and it's not a problem. I didn't have any difficulty seeing out of it. It's as good or better as the other scopes that I've used. I also really like the camo, the dark, the blackout camo, or whatever they call it. Pretty sweet. I'm even getting the hang of the Ravin arrows. I wasn't a big fan of that. I don't like being told what arrows I have to use, but I totally respect that with these higher speed, ultra modern crossbows, because it's just the way it is. You know, you need to respect the nock, respect the arrow, and use the proper equipment. You have to load it correctly. There's not a lot of room for error on a crossbow like this. You really need to make sure that you are using it properly in accordance with what the manufacturer sets forth. So when it comes to my specific hunting plan for the Ravin R29X, for the Black Widow, what's special about this crossbow can I talk about? Well, You would think that this is a long-range crossbow. It shoots 450 feet per second with a 400 grain arrow. I think it hit 454 or something like that from the factory. But I use a heavier arrow. I try to go to about 450 or better with a crossbow like this. I think with my field points on here and my broadheads of choice, the 150 grain SWAT Hacker, and you can get, you know, there's a coupon code Bunjie 2025. I'll save you 15% off Swacker's website. You can check that out too. Tell them Bunjie sent you, right? I love the 3-inch 150 grain SWAT Hacker. I think that is the greatest broadhead of all time. Haven't used every broadhead out there, but I can't imagine you can improve on the successes we've had with that. Putting that on here, we're up to 450 grains. We're still shooting 420, 430 feet per second, which is smoking fast by my standards. Start thinking at those speeds that, yeah, I'm going to be shooting long distance with this thing, right? We can reach out a little bit further. And I feel like I can reach out to 40 yards comfortably without a deer ducking the string. I'm not worried about that out to 40 yards and in. Based on my experience, you know, going from 250 feet per second up to 300 feet per second or so with the OB. The SWATs shooting 350 to 380. I've shot and hunted at those speeds with that crossbow. I've hunted around the 400 feet per second mark with the Scorpion Deathstalker, the slick black Cadillac. We're going to talk about that crossbow shortly. Each of those crossbows has a different application in the woods, and I get the feeling from that based on speed alone. And I know that the penetration power of this out to 40 yards is more than adequate. I don't have any concerns about that or worries about that whatsoever, because I know from the deathbybungie.com calculators, right, how much energy this creates and how much it carries downrange. This thing will put 0.8 slugs of momentum through a deer at 40 yards. It's not going to be an issue. Penetration is not an issue with this crossbow, or really with most modern crossbows at 40 yards. Not an issue, right? Even at 100 yards, really, energy isn't the question. The question is whether the deer is going to be in the same position when the arrow gets there. That's the question. So that's why I don't do the long stuff, right? But shorter stuff, 40 yards and in with this crossbow, real comfortable with that. So the hunting plan with this crossbow would be 40 yards and in. And this scope is perfect for that realistic hunting scenario. And as much as I love the range finding scope, I would hunt with this. It has really taught me a lot, this Hawk scope. On this crossbow at that speed, I don't think I have issues or any concerns. It shoots fast enough and flat enough, right? Less arcy out to 40 yards, where my margin of error, the accuracy level, is going to be pretty good out to 40 yards. And I intend to test that this morning. I'm going to take some shots out here and play around with it a little more. Every time I shoot this crossbow, I get a little more comfortable with it. And that's the whole point of shooting crossbows in August and maybe September, to get ready for October, right? So we shoot them in advance to get comfortable with them. The downside of this crossbow is it's really overkill. I love the speed. The faster you get the arrow there, the better. But I do not need 0.8 slugs of momentum to go through a bear or a deer or what have you. This thing is more than enough power to go through anything. And I'm telling you, it's like you'll never see the arrow. It'll just go through there and hopefully you find it. You better make a good shot, because that arrow's it's going in a straight line through whatever you shoot it at. That's just the way it is. With the SWAT, those things are a slower, you're really shooting, like I said, 75 feet per second slower. And that arrow speed is a lot easier to track on your camera. You know, I film everything with my phone, for example, and I have multiple cameras out there at any given time. Much easier to track the shot, get some real good footage and an idea where your arrow went before you go track the animal. That's really important to me, right? You lose that with a crossbow at this speed, but I like the speed. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, if that makes any sense. For hunting plans this fall, you saw my previous video where I talked about how we lost the family farm, that sort of thing, the place where I grew up. But don't worry about that, right? Don't fret. There is plenty of hunting opportunity going forward for this fall. In Pennsylvania, I still have hunting opportunities. We have plenty of state game lands right here in our county, and I have scouted state game lands in other counties as well. I can hunt right from the middle of October on state game lands and be very content. This crossbow is very good for that purpose, because I have a little bit more range with it where I feel comfortable. And I can get out there and sit in the grass, sit on the ground, and hunt. I have given up on climbing trees. Last year was my last year climbing trees with mobile hunting setups. And the reason for that is I have arthritis really bad in my hips. It is a real problem. And if I climb, the next day I can't even get out of bed. I'm locked right up. So I'm going through x-rays, going through all that fun stuff at this time to get that fixed. But it's not something that is going to get better. It's only going to get worse over time, I am told. And for that reason, I'm not going to put all my eggs in the climbing basket, if that makes any sense. I am going to abandon all of my climbing and just move on to hunting off the ground at that. And hunting off the ground is actually a problem too, because if I sit too long, my hips lock up. So there's kind of no fix for that. Off my knee, I can shoot that way. I would practice that a little bit more as we go forward. But this is a compact enough crossbow where I can swing it left or right very easily, and I think it would be very useful in that scenario. So it's a good crossbow for that purpose as well. I'm pretty excited about that. And it's suitable 40 yards and in for this scope. That's one thing I got to make sure I make clear. This scope is really not a long range scope. Okay, you can get away with long range shots with a speed ring scope where you can dial it in to exactly the precise speed of your crossbow, and at 70 yards, 100 yards, that reticle is going to be dead on. This does have those reticles, but it's really not going to be accurate for most crossbows. Once you get out to 50, 60, 70 yards, you know, it might be 54 yards instead of 50. It might be, you know, at 80 yards, it might be 96 yards, right? Like, it's not going to be dead on at those yardages, but you're going to find that it's really, really close at the closer yardages. So when we're talking about 40 yards, I don't think there's a problem. I don't think out to 40 yards, it's beautiful. And it's so easy to set up, and it's such good glass. Like, I set this thing up, this Hawk scope, and I dialed the zoom all the way in on the Bulldog target when I was taking my 20-yard shot. And the reticles are nice and far apart because you can zoom in. It doesn't affect your accuracy. It is a fixed scope, right? So I zoom in, and it's that first focal plane application. When you zoom in, I've got the reticles nice and big. I can see what the yardages are. It's all crisp. It's all clear. Then I use the focus ring, adjust the focus a little bit, and wow, I got it so it is set up perfect, and I could see the actual cross stitching in the target. I could see the texture, the burlap style texture of the target, the face of the target. You can't ask for better than that. On a deer, you're going to be able to count the hairs on a deer at 20 yards with this crossbow. So check out that scope. I really like it. It's gotten me more interested in hunting with this crossbow, and here we are a little bit late in August as I'm publishing this video or putting it together. I'm pretty excited about that scope and about this crossbow scope combination. This is the kind of scope that you use not for long range shooting, but for setting it up, letting it sit, go out and hunt, check it now and then. It's that kind of scope. It is an easy to use hunting scope. The other nice thing about a crossbow like this that's compact, you throw it in a case and you hunt with it. You carry it around, you throw it in the back of the truck, you know, behind the front seat there in the cab, and pull it out and hunt with it. And it's all self-contained and ready to go. When you hunt with the Excaliburs that we have, whether it's Bunjie Junior or the OB, those crossbows, you have to break them down. You take the front end off and ship it. This crossbow, you just pull it out of the box and hunt with it. It's pretty well set up. So when I talk about the different hunts that we've got planned, we have Pennsylvania opportunities, not just state game lands, but I also have the opportunity to hunt with friend of Bunjie, Jim. I probably will hunt a food plot or two, something like that, with him here in Pennsylvania. Very excited about that. We did that video about the food plottery, about Food Plot Friday, and that was a lot of fun. We put together a really nice video, put the drone up, all that good stuff. This crossbow would be great for that. I can shoot off my knee out of a blind with it, no problem. Even a smaller blind you can maneuver very easily with this crossbow. It's not a problem whatsoever. When we talk about our hunting plans, look at the stand on this bad boy. It's a backyard broadhead stand, and it just sits there. This thing is the best stand of any of the crossbows that have built-in stands that I have. The kickstand on this from Backyard Broadheads, this sits anywhere. I shoot off this right here on this table, took perfect shots. It's a perfectly level, you know, set it down, and it works great. Then in addition to that, though, I can put this in a blind, stand it up in front of me, just lift it up and shoot. It's going to be perfect. I really like, you know, it's the total package. It's not just one thing about this crossbow. It's the total package. It's that kickstand. It's the scope. It's the size of it, the crank, everything. It's the total package. And that's why I really like that crossbow. It's just awful violent when you shoot it is all. Genevieve and I are also going to Ohio this fall. So if I'm going to hunt with this bad boy, if I'm going to Ohio, when I travel and hunt, I don't know the scenarios, right? I don't know the setup. I haven't been to those stands before. It's all like you're learning it as you go sometimes. The guide will set up those stands, show you where to sit, and you sit there and shoot a deer, hopefully. It might be a 40-yard shot, could be longer, but nonetheless, this is the crossbow to take on a trip like that because, again, maneuverability in the tree stand, but also It's got the speed necessary for just about any setup of shots out to 40 yards or so. Same thing with Maryland. This crossbow would work very well whether I'm hunting in the woods with a more compact shot where I have to maneuver and get a deer closer to me, or if I'm hunting over one of those ag fields like I've done, you've seen me do here on Death by Bunjie. This is a good crossbow for that purpose. I can take a 40-yard shot. That arrow is going to beat the deer in ducking, and it's going to get there and go right through. The other hunt that we have planned, and I'm not going to use this crossbow for it, but I'll tell you that Genevieve and I are going to Maine to hunt black bears in September. So we'll have those videos coming for you very soon, setting up the videos and everything else. Genevieve and I went to Manitoba, as you know, and we had so much fun that we came back and Genevieve's like, where can we go hunting again? You know, she just had a great time in bear camp, so we're going to another bear camp. This one I set up with Friends of Bunjie. It is me, Genevieve, and 4 Friends of Bunjie. I was able in the middle of the summer, but get this, to find an outfitter who had 6 spots available. And I made contact, talked to that guy, we got it all set up. I'm very excited about this. We're in northern Maine in a very remote part of the world, very wilderness, right? There's no electricity, there's no cell service, nothing like that. We're gonna be out in the middle of God's country, enjoying the Maine wilderness. And staying in cabins, that sort of thing. All the electricity is run by generators. That's going to be fun. And that's where the bears are. You got to be someplace remote in order to inspire the bears to come in there. And then me and Friends of Bunjie and Genevieve will protect those barrels. This would be a great crossbow for that purpose, but I don't think I'm taking it there only because I have another special treat, right? When we talk about Death by Bunjie, it's not just what crossbow is best for the job, but it's the heritage of Death by Bunjie, where we have been as crossbow hunters as well. So there are little parts from my first and second Maine bear hunting trip that are going to accompany us on this trip. And no, it's not the OB, but there's going to be some other nostalgia in those videos. I'm very excited to share that with you, so make sure you stay tuned. I released the information for that bear hunt on deathbybunjie.com through the newsletter that is free. You can sign up for that for free, but that is where Friends of Bunjie get notified about things like this. There's probably going to be more of those hunts going forward, not less of them. So if you want to be involved in a future Death by Bunjie hunt, you know, I was able to work out a discount with that outfitter, with that guide, so that each Friend of Bunjie is actually saving hundreds of dollars on this trip. And, you know, you get a chance to hunt with me and Genevieve and hopefully shoot a big bear. What more do you want, right? So if you want to be included in one of those future offerings, right, the spots are always limited, I'm sure, if we keep doing this. There's only 4, and we had tons of interest, and it was so difficult to choose. It really came down to people who I'd had communications with previously in the past and talked to an awful lot. They got preference over the folks who had just reached out about it. But if you sign up on there, you'll be notified of future meet and greets. There is a meet and greet coming, right? And it will only be released on there. We'll probably fill up all of the spots for a future meet and greet out of that newsletter. So make sure you sign up for that email list, deathbybunjie.com. The last thing I want to talk about is one gun, right? One gun. And I've talked about this before. Every crossbow has the things I like and I don't like, and it also has requirements, right? The crank on this is very similar to the crank on the Hydra, right? The Excalibur Hybrid-X, but it's different. It's not exactly the same. On the Hybrid-X, you've got to back crank 3 times after you stop, and it clicks when it's cocked, and it has certain idiosyncrasies that this does not possess. So if you're cranking this back, waiting to hear a click, you've cranked it too far, like you'll over crank it. So you got to be very careful with that. The Hydra, on the other hand, as soon as you hear that click, you got to stop, and then you got to back crank. When I talk about one gun, I still stand by that. I know here on Death by Bunjie, I have a lot of crossbows. I have too many crossbows, right? And the future looks like I'm only going to have more crossbows, right? It's the Bunjie battalion. But I can't get rid of them. And I toyed with the idea of shooting them and selling them and that sort of thing. But they have their place. It's back to that nostalgia, right? There's this nostalgia with the slick black Cadillac. I've taken that to Maryland. I've hunted with that in Pennsylvania. I've had a good time with it, and I learned a lot. I've dry fired it. They finally got the backyard cleaned up. Now's the time to put a scope on this, play around with it in the backyard. It is a fun crossbow to shoot. It's very quiet. It's very smooth. It's light, right? A little bit wide for today's purposes by my preferences, but it's a good solid crossbow, and it's not as though it doesn't have a place in the Bunjie battalion. I think going forward, it's something I'm glad I've got and I will continue to play around with. And who knows, we might hunt with that down the road, right? There'll be a time where I got a food plot that needs protecting, and that might be just a crossbow for the job. But when I talk about the one gun, I still stand by that. I've spoken about that in my books, the Death by Bunjie crossbow story, and also in the Death by Bunjie crossbow method. Both of my books, I talk about the fact that one gun and how important it is. When I switch from another crossbow to this one, and shoot this one, there isn't a lot of room for error with modern crossbows, especially ultra modern crossbows. If you load the arrow upside down in this one, you want your cock vane down, snaps in, you got to snap it in place on the string. And at first, the first time you use each knock, or the first time you use that string, got to push a little bit harder. Eventually it gets so it's not so bad, but that is something that you have to do exactly right. If you don't, that arrow, those vanes are going to hit the rollers on the front end and blow your crossbow apart. You have to do everything just right on these crossbows, not only to get perfect, the optimal performance, but also for safety reasons. Switching from one crossbow to another, there's only going to be more room for error, more likelihood of screwing something up, because you're thinking about crossbow A and using your muscle memory from crossbow A on crossbow B. Not a good idea. It is not really my preference to have a lot of crossbows for that reason. I am not real comfortable having a lot of crossbows because it creates some hazardous conditions. But this is Death by Bunjie, and I have a lot of crossbows, and that's what viewers, what you, friends of Bunjie, kind of deserve, is me experimenting with more crossbows. I do believe that. I think that that helps Death by Bunjie. So really, I'm kind of doing this for you, and I'm not trying to be funny about it, but the reality is I want Death by Bunjie to reach more people, and you do that by using more crossbow gear and more crossbows. So the broader experience that I have, that I share with you on this channel, I think it's just better for you as a crossbow hunter to have more options and more information, more knowledge, right? It's better for me too to have more knowledge and experience. When it comes to hunting though, I really think for the crossbow seasons, buckle down and hunt with one crossbow is the best advice that I can give you, that one gun philosophy. There's a reason that that saying existed way back in the days of the cowboys, I'm betting, that beware the man who shoots one gun. And the reason for that is he knows how to use it. He gets really good with it. Right? That gunfighter knows exactly how it's going to feel when he reaches down for it to pull it out of the holster. He understands where his fingers go on the grip, where the palm of his hands go on that grip. He understands how much energy it takes to pull back that hammer, and when he fires it, he knows exactly what the response is going to be in his hand. He knows what that gun can and can't do, what it can and cannot accomplish. And that's huge, right? This crossbow can do a lot that that crossbow, the OB, cannot do. So even if you make a perfect shot with either crossbow, the end result's going to be different on this crossbow than what you can expect out of that one. Last year, when I was in Maryland, used that crossbow because I had issues with other crossbows, and that crossbow, shooting at deer even at 27 yards, deer duck, right? That doe ducked 1.5 inches by the time the arrow got there. It wasn't the most perfect shot of all time, but by the time the arrow got there, that deer had moved enough to take that shot in the spine. I don't want to see that again, right? I want the best accuracy I can get, and I want the arrow to get there before the animal can change my point of impact that I intended. This crossbow is much more able to do that at reasonable yardages. And if you've got a crossbow that's kind of modern, right, you're okay, as long as you stick with modern, realistic yardages and use it for its intended purpose. The problem arises when you switch from that one gun to a different one gun, and they aren't the same crossbow and they're not shooting the same arrow. The minute you change one thing, it changes something else. We talk about that here, and then all of a sudden you have a problem with your other crossbow. So it takes a lot. I have to remind myself when I choose to hunt with a different crossbow, you cannot spend enough time reminding yourself of the differences between that and the other one gun that you're familiar with. You have to relearn these things. So really the best advice I can give you is stick with one gun. Pick your crossbow for the season, shoot it a lot, and only shoot that one gun. That concludes this episode of Death by Bunjie. Until next time, all hail Bunjie.